How's that again? Presents. The truth about Amelia Earhart. Amelia Mary Earhart, born July 24, 1897, disappeared July 2, 1937, declared dead January 5, 1939, was an American aviation pioneer and writer. Earhart was the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She set many other records, was one of the first aviators to promote commercial air travel, wrote best-selling books about her flying experiences, and was instrumental in the formation of the 99s, an organization for female pilots. During an attempt at becoming the first woman to complete a circumnavigational flight of the globe in 1937 in a Purdue-funded Lockheed Model 10E Electra, Airhart and navigator Fred Noonan disappeared over the central Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. The two were last seen in Lae New Guinea on July 2, 1937, on the last land stop before Howland Island and one of their final legs of the flight. She presumably died in the Pacific during the circumnavigation, just 3 weeks prior to her 40th birthday, nearly 1 year and 6 months after she and Noonan disappeared. Airhart was officially declared dead. Investigations and significant public interest in their disappearance still continue over 80 years later. Many researchers believe that Airhart and Noonan ran out of fuel while searching for Howland Island, ditched at sea, and died. The plane would have carried enough fuel to reach Howland with some extra to spare. The extra fuel would cover some contingencies such as headwinds and searching for Howland. The plane could fly a compass course toward Howland through the night. In the morning, the time of apparent sunrise would allow the plane to determine its line of position, a sun line that ran 157 degrees to 337 degrees. From that line, the plane could determine how much farther it must travel before reaching a parallel sun line that ran through Howland. At 6:14 a.m. Itasca time, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter sent out to support the flight. Earhart estimated they were 200 miles, 320 kilometers, away from Howland. As the plane closed with the island, it expected to be in radio contact with Itasca. With the radio contact, the plane should have been able to use radio direction finding, RDF, to head directly for the Itasca and Howland. The plane was not receiving a radio signal from Itasca, so it would have been unable to determine a respective RDF bearing. Although Itasca was receiving HF radio signals from the plane, it did not have HF RDF equipment, so it could not determine a bearing to the plane. Almost no communications were transmitted to the plane. Consequently, the plane was not directed to Howland, and was left on its own with little fuel. Presumably, the plane reached the parallel sun line and started searching for Howland on that line of position. At 7:42 a.m., Airhart reported, "We must be on you, but cannot see you, but gas is running low. Have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at 1,000 feet." At 8:43 a.m., Airhart reported, "We are on the line 157,337. We will repeat this message. We will repeat this on 6210 kilocycles. Wait." Between Earhart's low on fuel message at 7:42 a.m. and her last confirmed message at 8:43, her signal strength remained consistent, indicating that she never left the immediate Howland area as she ran out of fuel. The U.S. Coast Guard made this determination by tracking her signal strength as she approached the island, noting signal levels from her reports of 200 and 100 miles out. These reports were roughly 30 minutes apart, providing vital ground speed clues. Based on these facts, and the lack of additional signals from Airhart, the Coast Guard first responders initiating the search concluded that she ran out of fuel somewhere very close to and north of Howland. During the 1970s, retired USN Captain Lawrence Safford began a lengthy analysis of the flight. His research included the intricate radio transmission documentation. Safford concluded that the flight had suffered from poor planning, worse execution. In 1982, retired USN Rear Admiral Richard R. Black, who was in administrative charge of the Howland Island airstrip and was present in the radio room on the Itasca, asserted that the Electra went into the sea about 10 a.m. July 2, 1937, not far from Howland. British aviation historian Roy Nesbitt interpreted evidence in contemporary accounts and Putnam's correspondence and concluded that Earhart's Electra was not fully fueled at Lae. William L. Polhemus, the navigator on Anne Pellegrino's 1967 flight that followed Airhart and Noonan's original flight path, studied navigational tables for July 2, 1937, and thought Noonan may have miscalculated the single-line approach intended to hit Howland. David Jourdain, a former Navy submariner and ocean engineer specializing in deep-sea recoveries, has claimed that any transmissions attributed to Gardner Island were false. Through his company Nauticos, he extensively searched a 1,200 square mile, 3,100 square kilometers, quadrant north and west of Howland Island during 2 deep-sea sonar expeditions, 2002 and 2006, total cost $4.5 million, and found nothing. The search locations were derived from the line of position 157337, broadcast by Airhart on July 2, 1937. Nevertheless, Elgin Long's interpretations have led Jourdain to conclude the analysis of all the data we have, the fuel analysis, the radio calls, other things, tells me she went into the water off Howland. Earhart's stepson George Palmer Putnam Jr. has been quoted as saying he believes the plane just ran out of gas. Airhart biography author Susan Butler posits that the aircraft went into the ocean out of sight of Howland Island and rests on the seafloor at a depth of 17,000 feet, 5 kilometers. Tom D. Crouch, senior curator of the National Air and Space Museum, has said the Electra is 18,000 feet down, and compares its archaeological significance to the Titanic, saying, "The mystery is part of what keeps us interested. In part, we remember her because she's our favorite missing person."